Welcome back to another episode of Road to the UFA, the video series hosted by me, Dylan South, live out of Tucson, Arizona, in which I document my attempt to join a professional UFA team. So I keep track of my workouts, I hold myself accountable for training well, for training consistently, for my diet, as well as for how I sleep, right? So I kind of use this video series as a way to hold myself accountable and, try to really reach that goal, because it's a pretty big goal, and I want to, not underestimate it. This was a really good week in terms of working out. I got a lot of really good workouts in. I stayed pretty consistent with those workouts. Here you can see a workout that I did on Monday, where I focused on strengthening my wrists, as well as a couple other things, some pull-ups, and just some general things for my arms. Right, so now you can see some forearm strengthening, some brachialis strengthening, just generally moving my shoulders around, getting some work in. After a set or two, I kind of move around to get the blood flow to the area, and then go on to move on to something else. It was a good week in terms of playing Frisbee. Played Frisbee 3 times at 3 different Sonoran dog practices. My ankle has unfortunately been bothering me a little bit, but I'm going to keep an eye on that, and if I need to, take some time off to really rehab it fully and let it rest. Here's some yoga that I did on Wednesday. It was a long day on Wednesday, and I needed to come home and get some stretching in. My body just kind of felt tight, I think this was Wednesday, yeah. After my first Sonoran dog practice, I think I felt just really tight and wasn't quite used to all the intensity and all the impact on my body. So I was doing a lot of stretching of my hips, my calves. I went inside and changed into some more comfortable clothes. No point in working out in tight clothes. You gotta get those full ranges of motion, and you gotta feel comfortable when you're working out and loose. Here I'm stretching out some of my hamstrings and my quad. As you can see, I'm a little unstable on my left side. That's the ankle that's hurting a little bit. Something I noticed this week is when I was bouncing on my left foot, I was a little unstable. Today is Monday as I'm recording this. Apologies for the late upload. And tomorrow at practice, I'm gonna do a couple sprints, maybe play a little bit of Frisbee, and just generally see how it feels. And if it starts to flare up and bother me again, I'm just gonna take my cleats off and take the rest of the practice off. It was a good week in terms of sleep. I averaged probably 8 hours and 15 minutes. This weekend I did a lot of catching up. I took 2 naps, each totaling about an hour and a half. So I got a lot of good sleep, which is good because, while you're sleeping, that's when your muscle is growing, and that's when your, muscle memory, as I've talked about previously, it's when your muscle memory is connecting itself, and those new motions that you're learning are cementing themselves into your long-term memory, right, to the point where there's something you don't even think about. On Saturday, my Frisbee team, Sonoran dog, we met up and did some running and some working out and some throwing and a little bit of minis. Shout out to those guys. It was a great workout. Again, my ankle was bothering me just a bit towards the end, unfortunately, but just because you are a little hurt doesn't mean you should discount all the work that you did. We did the walker core workout, and then after each set we threw for a couple minutes, then we came back and did another set. Before that, we did 2 half miles at about a 6-minute pace. after we did some minis, which I didn't get any footage of. I'm looking forward to getting some footage of some Sonoran dog practices. However, it feels a little strange to kind of pull out the camera and start vlogging in the middle of practice, especially early on in the season when not everybody knows me super well. So, that will be coming soon, but it could take a couple of weeks. Also hoping to get some drone footage of some practices or even some tournaments onto the vlog. It was a good week in terms of my diet. I've been taking creatine consistently in the mornings, along with my morning coffee. So my diet has been good there. There was actually maybe I shouldn't say it's been a good week in terms of my diet. There was a couple of days there where I had some donuts. It was Teacher Appreciation Week, and it's hard not to eat a donut or two. And I also had like the final potluck for my chess club, and so I may or may not have had a donut or two at that event. So I paid for it. My stomach's been hurting for a few days afterwards. I think there might have been some milk in some of those donuts. But other than that, I still have been getting a lot of protein, a lot of vegetables, a lot of good healthy carbs, rice, bread. So other than a couple stitches, it's been an okay week in terms of my eating, my diet. Give myself a 7 out of 10. This is a workout that I did on Sunday morning. It was a pretty long workout, about an hour and 10 minutes, and I did a lot of different stuff. Here you can see I did some polyquins. The slant board that I have is great for calf raise stuff, but also it's pretty good for polyquins and single leg squats, because it kind of makes that ankle stability not an issue or not a factor. Some bench pressing that I did as well afterwards. All right, making sure to go down slow, pause in that stretch position, activate those muscle fibers, and then come up as quick as possible. After that, I did some single leg squats, again with that slant board. I really liked how these felt. It felt good to have my legs close together. It was really activating the quads a lot. And that angle also is pretty nice. Then of course I have to pet Benny in between sets. That's sort of a mandatory. If I don't, he gets pretty upset. I won't tell you the things he says, but not safe for not PG-13. After I did some of those exercises, I did some kneeling shoulder presses, which activate a lot of my core and my back. So I'm doing a lot of stabilizing there, and strengthening my shoulder. I decided in this workout that I'm going to add in some kind of balancing things. I've noticed recently that a lot of my left side is not quite as strong, maybe less flexible, maybe more flexible. So I'm trying to really balance out some of those imbalances and putting a little bit of extra work in on that left side after some of these sets. My shoulder specifically, I found that when I was shoulder pressing, I could do about 9 on my right side and only like 5 or 6 on my left side before it got too weak. After that, I also did some ab rollouts, as you may have seen there. Been loving how that has been feeling on my core as well as in my shoulders. And I'm finally able to get my chest just to the ground, about an inch off the ground, getting into that full range of motion, which feels good. It's a little sore on my lower back, but I think with time and some more reps, some of those sorenesses will start to go away as more muscle is built. I did some more wrist strengthening, some wrist rotations, some forearm curls, some brachialis curls, and then afterwards I did a hang just to really fatigue that wrist. Whenever I'm hanging, I'm imagining myself, with the disc in my hands, skying somebody who will not be named, and sometimes that helps me to push a little bit further, and push past what I think I can do. Did some more imbalance work where I, did some curls on my left side and not on my right, and then another hang, which was not for very long because I was really sore at that point. Next, I did 100 calf raises. Aya recommended, I do 100 calf raises a day, so I'm gonna see how long I can do that for. I split them up into sets of, but maybe like 6 sets. First I did like 25, and then I did 10, and like 25, and then 10, and it's about as many as I can do in a row with good techniques. 25, good technique meaning I'm going down slow, pausing, and then coming up quickly. Going down slow, as you can even see here in these push-ups, pausing, and then coming up quickly. And then, as you can see, the rest of my calf raises. For the first time in a long time, working out, like this week, working out felt like not like a chore, not like something I forced myself to do or something that I had to do, but it just happened to be something that I did. It was kind of nice how, I just sort of found myself working out a couple times. I found myself just doing yoga. It wasn't something I had to motivate myself to do or tell myself to do. It finally clicked into being a habit, into something that I just do, which is a really nice feeling. If you're somewhere where you're pretty close to quitting on something, or maybe you feel an old habit creeping back in, or you've been doing something for a while but you're not sure if you're going to be able to continue with it, you really got to push through on those tough days and still get that thing done, because it's really nice when you just find yourself working out, or you find yourself exercising, and you don't have to spend 20 minutes motivating yourself or getting ready to do it. You just sort of did it. Anyways, that's enough of me yapping. Back to the workout. So I finished off my workout by doing some reverse push-ups where my body's kind of parallel to the ground, and there's some rings above my head, and I'm pulling myself up, kind of like in a row motion. However, instead of bringing something to me, I'm pulling my chest up towards my hands. And then afterwards, I did some tib raises. A lot of the times we think about one muscle, but we forget about the muscle on the other side. And, it's always good to work on both sides of your muscles, right? Not just your biceps, but also your triceps. Not just your hamstrings, but also your quads. So that is the workout footage that I have for you guys. I think there's one more set of, again, those reverse push-ups. Probably not even saying the exercise properly, but I wish I had some footage of it so you could see what it looked like. And then another set of tibs on the wall. After this is some footage of a couple of different runs and walks and workouts that I did. So there's a walk that I went on. There is a couple of the runs that we did at our our practice on Saturday, right? Those like half miles at a pretty speedy pace, as well as a dog run that we did on Thursday. So that's all I got for you guys this week. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next week. Have an excellent week.